My name is Geraldine, and I am 58 years old. As I sit here in my small living room on what should have been the happiest day of my daughter's life, I find myself completely alone. I spent 30 years raising her by myself after my husband passed away. I gave her everything I had. Yet somehow, I am not welcome at her wedding. They say the deepest wounds come from those we love the most. I never truly understood that until now. Before I share what happened, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. If stories about family sacrifice and the complicated bond between mothers and daughters touch your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Now let me take you back to where this all began. I need to tell you about the life I built before everything fell apart. My husband Harold and I met when I was 25 years old at a church picnic in our hometown just outside Cincinnati, Ohio. He was a skilled electrician with calloused hands and the kindest smile I had ever seen. We got married within a year, and I thought I had found my forever. When I was 28, our daughter Meredith came into the world. She was this tiny, perfect little thing with Harold's brown eyes and my stubborn chin. From the moment I held her, I knew my life had a new purpose. Harold used to joke that Meredith had both of us wrapped around her tiny fingers, and he was absolutely right. We were not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, but we were happy. Harold worked long hours to provide for us, and I stayed home to care for Meredith. Our little house was modest, just 2 bedrooms, and a small yard with a vegetable garden, but it was filled with love. I remember summer evenings sitting on the porch, watching Harold push Meredith on the tire swing he had built for her, listening to her laughter echo through the neighborhood. Then everything changed when Meredith was 6 years old. Harold was working on a commercial project downtown when there was an electrical accident. They called me at 3 in the afternoon. By 4:30, my husband was gone. Just like that, the man I had built my entire life around was no longer there. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. I had to plan a funeral while explaining to a 6-year-old why her daddy was not coming home anymore. The medical bills and funeral expenses left us drowning in debt. I remember sitting at the kitchen table after Meredith had gone to bed, staring at stacks of bills I had no idea how to pay, feeling like the walls were closing in on me. Some people suggested I should remarry, find another man to help support us. But I could not bring myself to do it. Harold had been my one true love, and more importantly, I wanted to focus entirely on raising our daughter. Meredith had already lost her father. She needed her mother to be fully present, so I made a decision that would shape the next 3 decades of my life. I learned to sew. My mother had taught me the basics when I was young, and I still had her old Singer sewing machine, a beautiful vintage piece that had been in our family for generations. I started taking in alterations from neighbours, then from the local dry cleaners, then from a few small boutiques in town. The work was not glamorous. I would spend entire nights hunched over that sewing machine, my fingers cramped and my eyes burning, finishing orders so I could collect payment and put food on the table. I hemmed pants, took in dresses, repaired torn seams, and eventually started making simple garments from scratch. But I also discovered that I was good at it. Really good. My stitches were precise. My eye for detail was sharp, and word began to spread. People started coming to me specifically because they knew Geraldine would do the job right. Meredith grew up watching me work. She would sit beside me while I sewed, doing her homework at the little table I had set up in my workroom. Sometimes she would fall asleep to the rhythmic hum of the sewing machine, and I would carry her to bed before going back to finish whatever order was due the next morning. I made most of her clothes myself. I would buy fabric remnants at discount stores, sometimes piecing together scraps to create something beautiful. Other mothers might have seen this as a sign of poverty, but I tried to make it special for Meredith. Every dress I made for her was unique designed with love, and I made sure she always looked put together. What Meredith did not know, what I never told her, was how many meals I skipped so she could eat. How many times I told her I was not hungry, when the truth was, there simply was not enough food for both of us. How I wore the same 3 outfits for years while making sure she had new clothes for school every fall. I stopped buying anything for myself. The clothes in my closet were the same ones I had owned since before Harold died. They were well maintained because I knew how to repair them, but they were undeniably old. I did not mind. Every dollar I saved on myself was a dollar that could go toward Meredith's future, and that future was all I thought about. I wanted her to have opportunities I never had. I wanted her to go to college, to build a career, to never have to worry about money the way I worried about it every single day. So I saved. Penny by penny, dollar by dollar, I put money aside for her education. The day Meredith graduated from high school was one of the proudest moments of my life. She had earned a scholarship to study accounting at a good university, and I had saved enough to cover whatever the scholarship did not. I remember sitting in that auditorium, tears streaming down my face, thinking that every sleepless night had been worth it. She was going to have the life I had dreamed of for her. She was going to be successful, and I believed with all my heart that she would never forget where she came from. I should have seen the signs earlier. Looking back now, the changes in Meredith did not happen overnight. They crept in slowly, like frost, spreading across a window so gradual that I did not notice until everything had already changed. After graduating from college with honors, Meredith landed a position at a prestigious financial firm in Chicago. I was thrilled for her. Chicago was only about 5 hours from Cincinnati, close enough that I imagined frequent visits, long phone calls, maybe even occasional weekends where she would come home and we would cook together like we used to. But the visits never came. The phone calls became shorter and less frequent. When we did talk, Meredith seemed distracted, always rushing to get somewhere, always promising to call back later, and then forgetting. I told myself she was just busy. Building a career was demanding, especially in a competitive field like finance. She was young and ambitious, and I should be proud that she was working so hard. I repeated these things to myself whenever the loneliness crept in. Then she told me about Preston. Preston Whitmore III. Even his name sounded like money. Meredith described him as a junior partner at her firm, but what she really meant was that he was the son of the man who owned the firm. The Whitmore family was old Chicago money. They owned a chain of luxury hotels and had real estate holdings worth more than I could comprehend. Preston had been born into a world I could not even imagine. I tried to be happy for her. She sounded excited when she talked about him, about the fancy restaurants he took her to, the galas and charity events they attended. She sent me photos sometimes, and I barely recognized her. My daughter, who used to wear homemade dresses and run barefoot in our backyard, was now draped in designer gowns and glittering jewelry. 8 months into their relationship, Meredith finally agreed to bring Preston home to meet me. I prepared for weeks. I cleaned the house from top to bottom, planted fresh flowers in the front yard, and planned a menu of all Meredith's favourite childhood dishes. Pot roast with vegetables, homemade mashed potatoes, my special apple pie. The evening started well enough. Preston was polite, shaking my hand and complimenting the house. But I noticed the way his eyes scanned the room, lingering on the worn carpet, the mismatched furniture, the lack of anything that could be considered luxurious. His smile was pleasant, but his gaze was calculating. During dinner, I tried to make conversation. I asked about his family, his work, his hobbies. His answers were brief and somewhat condescending, like he was explaining complex concepts to a child who could not possibly understand. But what hurt most was Meredith. She kept apologizing for things. The size of the dining room, The fact that we did not have wine glasses, so I had served water in regular tumblers. The way the floorboards creaked when we walked. At one point, I went to the kitchen to get dessert, and I heard them talking in low voices. I did not mean to eavesdrop, but Meredith's words carried. "I am so sorry about all this," she was saying. "My mum is just a seamstress. This is all she can afford." Just a seamstress. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stood there in my kitchen holding the apple pie I had spent 3 hours making, feeling something inside me crack. I served dessert with a smile on my face. I pretended I had not heard anything. When they left that night, I hugged Meredith and told her I was happy she had found someone special. But after they drove away, I sat in the dark living room for a long time, trying to convince myself that I had misunderstood. 3 months later, Meredith called with news that should have filled me with joy. She and Preston were engaged. The wedding would be next spring at the Whitmore family's estate in Lake Forest. My first thought was that I wanted to make her wedding dress. It had been my dream for years. I had sketched designs in the margins of notebooks, collected magazine clippings of lace patterns and bodice styles. I knew exactly what would look beautiful on my daughter. When I mentioned it, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Mom," Meredith said finally, her voice careful, "that is really sweet, but my dress is already being made. It is a custom design from a couture house in Paris. It costs $50,000. $50,000. For a dress. That was more than I earned in 2 years. "Oh," I managed to say. "That sounds lovely, and the wedding planner is handling everything," she continued. "So you do not need to worry about helping with preparations or anything. Just show up and enjoy yourself. Just show up. Like I was any other guest. Not the mother of the bride. Not the woman who had sacrificed everything to give her this life." I swallowed my hurt and told her I was excited. But when I hung up the phone, I looked around my small house at the sewing room where I had spent countless nights working to provide for her, and I wondered when my daughter had become a stranger. 2 weeks before the wedding, I received a formal invitation to a pre-wedding dinner in Chicago. The entire Whitmore family would be there, and Meredith wanted me to meet them properly before the big day. I spent days preparing. I went through my closet looking for something appropriate to wear to what I knew would be an elegant event. My options were limited. Most of my clothes were work clothes, practical items I could sew in. For special occasions, I had exactly 2 dresses. I chose my navy blue dress. I had made it myself about 15 years ago for a friend's funeral, but the design was classic and timeless. A modest neckline, a fitted waist, a hem that fell just below my knees. The fabric was good quality, and I had maintained it carefully over the years. It still fit well and looked respectable. For jewellery, I wore the only piece that mattered to me. A pearl necklace that Harold had given me on our wedding day. The pearls were not real, just good quality imitations, but they were beautiful, and they meant everything to me. I could not afford a flight to Chicago, and I did not want to ask Meredith to pay for one. So I took the bus. It was an 8-hour journey, but I did not mind. I used the time to prepare myself mentally, to rehearse conversation topics, to imagine how I would win over the Whitmore family with my warmth and sincerity. The dinner was at a restaurant I had only seen in magazines, the kind of place with crystal chandeliers and waiters in tuxedos and a menu without prices, because if you had to ask, you could not afford it. I arrived a few minutes early and stood outside for a moment, suddenly aware of how out of place I looked. Women were entering in designer gowns with diamonds sparkling at their throats. Men were in custom-tailored suits that probably cost more than my car. But I straightened my shoulders and walked in. I was here for my daughter. That was all that mattered. The Whitmores were already seated at a large round table in a private room. Meredith was there, looking stunning in a silk dress, her hair professionally styled. Preston sat beside her, and around them were his parents and his younger sister. Victoria Whitmore, Preston's mother, was exactly what I had expected. Perfectly coiffed blonde hair, flawless makeup, a dress that probably came from the same Paris designers who were making Meredith's wedding gown. She was dripping in diamonds, real ones, the kind that catch the light and throw rainbows across the room. When I approached the table, Victoria looked at me the way one might look at something unpleasant stuck to the bottom of their shoe. Her eyes travelled slowly from my simple hairstyle to my 15-year-old dress to my imitation pearls, and her lip curled almost imperceptibly. "So, this is Meredith's mother," she said, not getting up from her chair. "How quaint." Her husband, whose name I later learned was Reginald, was more polite, but equally dismissive. He shook my hand briefly and immediately turned back to his conversation with Preston. The younger sister Cordelia made no effort to hide her disdain. As I took my seat, I heard her whisper to Victoria, loud enough for me to catch every word. "That is the mother of the bride. She looks like the help." I felt my cheeks burn. Across the table, Meredith's face had turned red, but not from embarrassment on my behalf. She was embarrassed because of me. The dinner was excruciating. Every attempt I made at conversation was met with polite dismissal or outright condescension. When the waiter asked about wine preferences, I admitted I did not know much about wine, and Cordelia actually laughed out loud. When Reginald asked about my profession, I told him proudly that I was a seamstress. He raised an eyebrow. "A seamstress?" he repeated, as if the word itself was distasteful. "How industrious." The way he said it made clear he did not mean it as a compliment. He meant it as a judgment. I was a working-class woman who sewed for a living, and in his world, that made me barely worth acknowledging. Throughout the meal, Meredith barely looked at me. She was focused on the Whitmores, laughing at their jokes, agreeing with their opinions, doing everything possible to prove that she belonged in their world. After dessert, when the Whitmores excused themselves to speak with the restaurant owner, who was apparently a personal friend, Meredith grabbed my arm and pulled me toward a quiet corner near the restrooms. Her grip was tight, almost painful. Her face was flushed, and when she spoke, her voice was a harsh whisper. "Mum, we need to talk." I looked at my daughter, searching for the little girl I had raised, the one who used to tell me I was the best mother in the world. But all I saw was a stranger with cold eyes and a clenched jaw. "What is wrong, sweetheart?" Meredith took a deep breath. "I do not think you should come to the wedding." For a moment, I could not process what she had said. My brain simply refused to accept the words. "What do you mean?" "I mean exactly what I said." Her voice was flat matter-of-fact, as if she was discussing a minor scheduling conflict rather than excluding her own mother from her wedding. "Look at yourself, Mom. Look at what you are wearing. That dress is older than some of the wine they served tonight. Your jewelry is fake. You do not know how to act in these situations." Each word was like a knife sliding between my ribs. "You will embarrass me in front of Preston's family," she continued. They think I come from a well-off background. I told them you own a successful fashion boutique. If they see you at the wedding like this, they will know I lied." I stared at her, unable to speak. My daughter, my flesh and blood, the child I had starved myself to feed, was telling me I was too poor to watch her get married. "I will tell them you are sick," Meredith said, already planning the cover story. "A sudden illness. You wanted to come, but you simply could not. They will understand." Finally, I found my voice. It came out barely above a whisper. "You are ashamed of me." Meredith did not even flinch. I am being practical. This is my future, Mom. The Whitmores are one of the most influential families in Chicago. I cannot risk it all because you cannot afford decent clothes. I raised you, I said, my voice breaking. I gave you everything. I went hungry so you could eat. I worked through the night so you could have a future. And now you are saying I am too poor to come to your wedding. For just a moment, something flickered in Meredith's eyes. Guilt, maybe. Or perhaps just annoyance at my emotional response. This is not about what you did or did not do, she said. This is about reality. You would not fit in. You would make things awkward. It is better for everyone if you just do not come. She turned and walked back to the private dining room, leaving me standing alone in the hallway. I do not remember much about the rest of that night. I know I left the restaurant without saying goodbye. I know I walked several blocks before I found a bench to sit on. I know I cried quietly while strangers walked past me without a second glance. And I know that something inside me, something I had nurtured and protected for 30 years, finally shattered beyond repair. I caught the overnight bus back to Cincinnati. 8 hours of darkness outside the window. 8 hours of replaying every word my daughter had said. 8 hours of feeling like a wound that would never stop bleeding. The bus was nearly empty at that hour. Just me and a handful of other passengers, each lost in their own world. A young mother with a sleeping toddler. An elderly man reading a paperback novel. A college student with headphones nodding along to music I could not hear. None of them knew that my world had just collapsed. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass and watched the highway lights blur past. I kept thinking about Meredith when she was little. How she used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, snuggling close and telling me I made her feel safe. How she would bring me dandelions she had picked from the yard, presenting them like they were precious roses. How she used to watch me sew and tell me I was magic, turning plain fabric into beautiful things. When did that little girl disappear? When did she become someone who could look at her own mother and see nothing but an embarrassment to be hidden away? I thought about every sacrifice I had made. The college fund I had scraped together, penny by penny. The birthday parties I had thrown on a shoestring budget, making everything by hand, because I could not afford to buy decorations. The time I sold my mother's antique brooch, the only valuable thing I owned, to pay for Meredith's braces. I had given her everything. And in return, she told me I was too poor to be seen in public with her. By the time the bus pulled into Cincinnati, the sun was just beginning to rise. I walked home from the station, too exhausted to think about catching another bus. It took me almost an hour, but I barely noticed. My body moved automatically, while my mind remained stuck in that restaurant hallway. I reached my house a little after 6 in the morning. The spare key was still under the flower pot by the back door, right where I had left it. I let myself in and stood in the darkness of my living room, surrounded by the remnants of a life I no longer recognized. Meredith's face smiled at me from photographs on every surface. Her first day of school, her high school graduation, her college acceptance celebration. Snapshots of a life I had shaped with my own 2 hands. I walked to the sewing room, moving like a sleepwalker. In the closet, hidden beneath old fabric samples and pattern books, was a garment bag I had not opened in months. I unzipped it carefully and pulled out the wedding dress. I had started working on it 2 years ago, when Meredith first mentioned that she had started seeing someone special. Even before I knew it would lead to marriage, I had begun planning. I had saved for months to buy the fabric. Italian silk satin in a soft champagne colour, French lace for the overlay, tiny seed pearls I had sourced from a specialty supplier in New York. The dress was almost finished. Just the final embellishments remained. The hem needed to be hand-stitched with the lace border, and I planned to add delicate beading around the neckline. A few more weeks of work, and it would have been complete. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever made. Every stitch was perfect. Every detail was planned with my daughter in mind, designed to make her look and feel like the princess she had always been to me. But she would never wear it. She had chosen a $50,000 gown from Paris instead. She had chosen the Whitmores over me. I sat on the floor of my sewing room, holding the dress against my chest, and I wept. I cried for the little girl who used to call me her best friend. I cried for the mother I had tried so hard to be. I cried for 30 years of sacrifice that had ended in rejection. And then, somewhere in the depths of my grief, something else began to emerge. Not anger exactly. Something colder and more solid than anger. A quiet, steady sense of resolve. I would not go to the wedding. Not because Meredith had told me not to, but because I refused to go where I was not wanted. I refused to beg my own child for permission to be part of her life. I refused to pretend that everything was fine when my heart had been ripped from my chest. But I would not lie either. I would not claim to be sick. I would not participate in Meredith's deception. I spent the rest of that day writing a letter. It took me several attempts to get the words right. I wanted to be honest without being cruel. I wanted Meredith to understand the depth of my pain without giving in to bitterness. Finally, around midnight, I was satisfied with what I had written. Dear Meredith, the letter began. I am writing to let you know that I will not be attending your wedding. This is not because I am sick. It is because you asked me not to come, and I have decided to respect your wishes. You told me that I would embarrass you, that I am too poor to fit into your new world. Those words broke my heart in ways I cannot begin to describe. But I want you to know something. No matter what you think of me, I love you. I have loved you since the moment you were born, and I will love you until the day I die. That love does not come with conditions, and it does not require reciprocation. It simply exists. Inside this package, you will find a gift. It is the wedding dress I have been making for you for the past 2 years. It is the most beautiful thing I have ever created, and I made it with you in my mind for every single stitch. You will not wear it. I understand that. Your Paris gown is waiting for you, and this simple dress made by your seamstress mother cannot compete with that. But I wanted you to have it anyway. I wanted you to know that even when you were ashamed of me, I was still thinking of you. I was still working for you. I was still loving you. I hope your wedding day is everything you have dreamed of. I hope your marriage brings you happiness. And I hope that someday, perhaps many years from now, you will look at this dress and remember that there was someone who loved you completely, without reservation, without expecting anything in return. Your mother, Geraldine. I folded the letter carefully and placed it inside the garment bag with the unfinished dress. The next morning, I took it to the post office and sent it to Meredith's apartment in Chicago. Then I went home and prepared to spend my daughter's wedding day alone. The wedding was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Saturday in late April. I woke up that morning at my usual time a little before 6 and lay in bed for a long moment, staring at the ceiling. It was going to be a beautiful day. I could tell already from the quality of light coming through my curtains. Bright and clear, the kind of spring day that makes everything look fresh and new. Perfect weather for a wedding. I got up slowly, my joints protesting the way they always did these days, and went through my morning routine. Coffee. Toast. A few minutes standing in the backyard watching the birds at the feeder I had put up last summer. Normal things. Ordinary things. As if this was just another Saturday. But it was not just another Saturday. Somewhere in Chicago, my daughter was being dressed in a $50,000 gown, surrounded by stylists and assistants and wedding planners. Somewhere in Chicago, she was preparing to walk down the aisle without me there to see it. Around 10 a.m, my doorbell rang. I was not expecting anyone, and my first absurd thought was that Meredith had changed her mind. that she had come to apologize, to beg me to attend after all. But when I opened the door, it was Dorothy from next door. Dorothy was 72 years old, widowed like me, and one of the few people I considered a true friend. "I heard about the wedding," she said without preamble. She was holding a casserole dish and wearing her "I mean business" expression. "Linda from the dry cleaners told me. Said you turned down a job last week because you were too upset to work. Want to tell me what is going on?" I should have known I could not keep secrets in this neighborhood. I sighed and stepped aside to let her in. Over coffee and generous slices of her famous tuna casserole, I told Dorothy everything. The dinner in Chicago. The things Meredith had said. My decision not to attend the wedding. Dorothy listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with every detail. When I finished, she set down her coffee cup with more force than necessary. "That ungrateful child," she said flatly. "After everything you did for her. I remember when she was little, Geraldine. I remember you going without food so she could have new shoes for school. I remember you working until your fingers bled to make her Christmas special. And this is how she repays you." "She is still my daughter," I said quietly. "I cannot stop loving her just because she hurt me." "No one is asking you to stop loving her, but you do not have to accept being treated like garbage either." We sat in silence for a moment. Through the window, I could see the tire swing in the backyard, the one Harold had put up so many years ago. Meredith had outgrown it decades ago, but I had never been able to bring myself to take it down. "What time is the ceremony?" Dorothy asked. 2:00. She glanced at the clock on my wall. "It is almost noon now, probably about to start the preparations." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Dorothy reached over and took my hand. "You are doing the right thing," she said firmly. "You are respecting yourself. That matters, Geraldine. It matters more than you know." We spent the afternoon together. Dorothy refused to leave me alone, which I secretly appreciated more than I could say. We played cards. We watched old movies on television. We carefully avoided any mention of weddings or daughters or Chicago. But I could not stop myself from glancing at the clock. 2:00 came and went. Then 3. Then 4. Somewhere far away, Meredith was becoming Mrs. Preston Whitmore III, and I was not there to see it. What I did not know, what I could not possibly have known, was that at that very moment, 5 hours away in Lake Forest, everything was falling apart. The ceremony had gone smoothly from what I later learned. Meredith had walked down the aisle in her Paris gown, looking every bit the elegant bride she had wanted to be. Preston had said his vows. They had exchanged rings. Everything was perfect. Until the reception. Among the 300 guests at the Whitmore estate was a woman named Evelyn Harper. Evelyn was 75 years old, a long-time member of Chicago society, and as it happened, she had grown up in a small town just outside Cincinnati. The same small town where I had raised Meredith. Evelyn had been invited as a guest of one of Victoria Whitmore's bridge club friends. She knew nothing about Meredith's background, nothing about the lies that had been told. When she spotted the bride and recognized her as the little girl who had grown up down the street from her sister's house, she was delighted. "Meredith," she exclaimed, approaching the head table during the reception. "I cannot believe it. Little Meredith from Cincinnati. How wonderful to see you. How is your mother, Geraldine Wright? Such a wonderful woman. I remember when your father passed away. Your mother worked herself to the bone to provide for you. The whole neighborhood admired her so much." Victoria Whitmore, seated nearby, overheard every word. "I am sorry," Victoria said, her voice sharp with sudden interest. "Did you say her mother is a widow from Cincinnati?" Evelyn nodded happily, oblivious to the bomb she was detonating. Oh yes. Geraldine raised Meredith all by herself after Harold died. She is a seamstress, you know. Makes the most beautiful alterations. Everyone in the neighborhood goes to her. I am surprised she is not here. She and Meredith were so close when Meredith was growing up. The table had gone silent. Victoria's eyes narrowed as she turned to look at Meredith, who had gone pale as a ghost. A seamstress, Victoria repeated slowly. Not the owner of a successful fashion boutique, as you told us. And she is not here because she is ill. Is that right? That is what you said. Meredith opened her mouth, but no words came out. Reginald Whitmore set down his champagne glass. Is there something you would like to tell us, Meredith? The whispers started almost immediately. 300 guests, most of them high society types who lived for scandal, suddenly had something far more interesting to discuss than the flower arrangements. Within minutes, everyone at the reception knew the truth. The bride had lied about her background. Her mother was not a successful businesswoman, but a poor seamstress. And she was not absent due to illness, but because Meredith had told her not to come. Preston pulled Meredith into a private room, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. You lied to me, he said. For over a year you lied to my face about who you are, about where you come from, about your own mother. I can explain, Meredith started. Explain what, that you were so ashamed of the woman who raised you that you would rather lie to everyone than admit she exists. What kind of person does that? The marriage was only hours old, and it was already in crisis. I woke the next morning to someone pounding on my front door. It was barely 6:30. The sun was just coming up, casting long shadows across my front porch. I pulled on my robe and hurried to the door, my heart racing with sudden fear. In my experience, nothing good ever came from someone knocking that desperately. I opened the door, and there was Meredith. She was still wearing her wedding dress, though it was rumpled and stained now. Grass stains on the hem, what looked like red wine splashed across the bodice. Her elaborate hairstyle had collapsed into tangled strands around her face. Her makeup was smeared black mascara tracks running down her cheeks. She looked like a disaster. She looked like a woman whose world had ended. Mum, she choked out, and then she was sobbing great heaving sobs that shook her entire body. Mum, please. They found out. Everyone found out. You have to come back. You have to help me fix this. I stood in the doorway looking at my daughter, and I felt something strange. A calm, steady center in the middle of what should have been chaos. Come inside, I said quietly. I made tea while Meredith sat at the kitchen table and cried. The same table where she had done her homework as a child. The same table where I had served her countless meals, made from whatever I could afford. The same table where we had celebrated birthdays and holidays and ordinary Tuesday evenings, just the two of us against the world. When the tea was ready, I set a cup in front of her and took my own seat across the table. Tell me what happened, I said. Between sobs, the story came out. Evelyn Harper, the revelation, Victoria Whitmore's fury, Preston's sense of betrayal, the whispers and stares of 300 guests who now knew that the bride was a fraud. Preston barely spoke to me for the rest of the night. Meredith said, her voice raw. His parents left early. Cordelia called me white trash in front of everyone. The whole reception was ruined. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand, her fingers cold and trembling. But you can fix it, Mom. You can come to Chicago with me. You can meet with the Whitmores, explain that you are not just some poor seamstress, that you are respectable, that I did not really lie. I just... Just what? I asked quietly. Meredith faltered. I just exaggerated a little. You could tell them about the dress you made me. That proves you are talented, right? That proves you are not. Not what? Not an embarrassment. Not too poor to be seen with. She flinched at the words, hearing her own cruelty reflected back at her. I took a deep breath. Meredith, let me ask you something. Why are you here right now? Because I need your help. I need you to come back with me and… No, I interrupted gently. Why are you really here? Is it because you are sorry for what you said to me? Is it because you realized you were wrong to treat your mother like something to be ashamed of? Or is it because everything fell apart and you need me to clean up your mess? Meredith stared at me, her mouth opening and closing without sound. You came to me, I continued, because you want me to fix what you broke, not because you care about my feelings, not because you regret hurting me, but because you are in trouble and you think I can make it go away. That is not… I am not finished. My voice was firm, but not angry, just tired. So very tired. 3 days ago, you told me I was too poor to come to your wedding. You said my old clothes would embarrass you. You said I did not fit into your world, and now that your lies have been exposed, you want me to put on a performance for the Whitmores to save your reputation. Meredith said nothing. She could not meet my eyes. I sent you a package, I said. Did you receive it? She nodded slowly. Did you open it? A long pause, then barely above a whisper, no. That package contained a wedding dress. I spent 2 years making it for you. I used the finest materials I could afford, saved for months to buy the silk and the lace. I put more love into that dress than anything else I have ever created. My voice caught, but I pressed on. You never even opened it. Tears were streaming down Meredith's face again, but different tears now. Not self-pity, but something closer to genuine remorse. Mum, I love you, I said. I have loved you since the moment you were born, and I will love you until the day I die. Nothing you do can change that. But I am not going to Chicago with you. I am not going to pretend to be something I am not, just so you can save face with people who looked at me like I was dirt on their shoes. I stood up and moved to the window, looking out at the backyard where she used to play. You need to face the consequences of what you did. Not because I want to punish you, but because that is how we grow. That is how we learn to be better. I cannot keep protecting you from your own choices. But what am I supposed to do? Her voice was small, childlike, in a way it had not been in years. I turned back to face her. You go back to Chicago. You tell the truth. Not a version of the truth that makes you look better, but the real truth. You tell them that your mother is a seamstress who raised you alone after your father died. You tell them she sacrificed everything so you could have a future. And you tell them that you were so desperate to fit into their world that you lied about where you came from. They will hate me. Maybe. Or maybe they will respect your honesty. But either way, you will be able to live with yourself. And that matters more than what the Whitmores think of you. Meredith sat at the table for a long time, processing everything I had said. Finally, she stood up, her ruined wedding dress rustling around her feet. I am sorry, Mom. Her voice cracked. I am so sorry. I know. Can you ever forgive me? I crossed the room and took her hands in mine. They were cold, trembling, the hands of a frightened child, despite the woman she had become. I already forgive you, I said. But forgiveness does not mean everything goes back to the way it was. Trust has to be rebuilt. Respect has to be earned. You have to show me, not just tell me that you understand what you did wrong. She nodded, tears dripping onto our clasped hands. Go home? I said gently. Face what you need to face. And when you are ready, when you have done the work, you know where to find me." I walked her to the door. Before she left, she turned back one more time. "The dress you made," she said. "Is it too late to see it?" "It is at your apartment. You just have to open the package." She nodded again, a small movement full of shame and regret. Then she was gone, walking down the path to her rental car, still wearing her stained and wrinkled Paris gown. I watched until she drove away. Then I closed the door and stood alone in my quiet house. The weeks that followed were not easy. There were long stretches of silence when I heard nothing from Meredith, and I had to fight the urge to call her, to check on her, to try to fix things the way mothers always want to fix things for their children. But I held back. This was her journey to take. In the meantime, I focused on my own healing. It sounds simple when I say it like that, but the reality was messy and painful. There were nights when I could not sleep, replaying every moment of that dinner in Chicago, hearing my daughter's voice telling me I was too poor to be seen with her. There were mornings when I could barely get out of bed, the weight of rejection pressing down on me like a physical force. But I had Dorothy next door, checking on me every day, refusing to let me wallow alone. And I had my work. The steady rhythm of needle and thread, the satisfaction of creating something beautiful from raw materials. My sewing room became my sanctuary, the place where I could lose myself in the simple act of making. I started something new during those weeks. A project that had nothing to do with Meredith, nothing to do with the past. I began teaching sewing classes for women in the community. Single mothers, mostly women who were struggling the way I had struggled all those years ago. We met in my living room twice a week. I taught them basic repairs, at first how to hem pants and replace buttons. Then we moved on to simple garments, aprons and pillow covers, and eventually dresses. Nothing fancy, just practical skills that could save them money and give them a sense of accomplishment. It felt good to share what I knew, to see their faces light up when they finished something for the first time, to know that my years of hard-won expertise could help someone else the way it had helped me. I was starting to remember who I was outside of being Meredith's mother, and that felt like its own kind of freedom. Meanwhile, in Chicago, things were changing. Meredith did what I told her to do. She went to the Whitmores and told them the truth. The whole truth, including the part about asking me not to come to the wedding. She did not make excuses or try to soften what she had done. Victoria Whitmore refused to see her after that. The woman's pride could not handle being deceived, and she made it clear that Meredith was no longer welcome at family gatherings. But Preston surprised everyone. He was angry at first, deeply angry about the lies. But as the weeks passed, something shifted. He started asking Meredith questions about her childhood, about me, about what our lives had really been like. He wanted to understand. "My mother grew up with nothing to," he told Meredith one night, according to what she later shared with me. "She married into money, but she came from a poor family in rural Pennsylvania. She pretends it never happened, erases that part of her history. I always hated that about her. The shame she carried for no reason." He looked at Meredith seriously. "I do not want that for us. I fell in love with you, not with some made-up version of you. But I need to know who you really are." So Meredith began to tell him. The real stories, not the sanitized versions she had been sharing. Stories about our tiny house and our second-hand furniture. Stories about the meals I had made stretch for days. Stories about the dress I had made for her prom working through the night because she had begged me for something special. And she began calling me again, not to ask for favors or to use me as a prop in her social climbing, just to talk, to ask how I was doing, to share small details about her life that had nothing to do with impressing anyone. The conversations were awkward at first. We were both tiptoeing around the hurt, not quite sure how to be with each other anymore. But slowly, gradually, something began to heal. About 6 months after the wedding, Meredith came to visit. She arrived alone, having driven the 5 hours from Chicago in her own car. No stylists, no entourage, just my daughter in jeans and a simple sweater, looking more like herself than she had in years. She brought the wedding dress I had made with her, still in its garment bag, but finally opened. And she had done something that made me cry when I saw it. The dress had been unfinished when I sent it. The hem was not complete, the lace border waiting to be attached. But Meredith had finished it herself. Her stitches were not as precise as mine, a little uneven in places, clearly the work of an amateur. But she had sat down and learned, had worked through the frustration, and the pricked fingers had completed what I had started. "I wanted to do something," she said, holding out the dress. "I know it is not perfect, but I wanted you to see that I understand now. I understand what this represents. What you gave me." We spent that weekend together, really together, for the first time in years. We cooked meals in my small kitchen. We walked through the neighborhood where she had grown up. We sat on the porch in the evening, watching the sun go down, talking about everything and nothing. And Meredith told me about her plan. She and Preston had discussed it at length. They wanted to have a small ceremony, a renewal of vows, here at my house. Nothing fancy, just close friends and family. And this time, Meredith wanted to wear the dress I had made. "Would that be okay?" she asked, her voice uncertain. "I know I do not deserve it after everything I did, but I want to start over. I want to do it right this time." I looked at my daughter, this complicated, flawed human woman who had hurt me more deeply than I ever thought possible. And I saw something I had not seen in years: genuine humility, true remorse, and the tentative beginning of the person she might become. "Yes," I said. "I would like that very much." The ceremony took place on a Saturday afternoon in early autumn, when the leaves in my backyard were just beginning to turn gold. There were maybe 20 people there. Dorothy from next door, a few of my sewing students, some of Meredith's real friends, the ones who had known her before Chicago, before the Whitmores, before she had lost herself, trying to be someone she was not. Preston came with just his father. Reginald Whitmore, to everyone's surprise, had come around. Meeting me in person, hearing the real story of how I had raised Meredith alone, had softened something in him. He was still formal, still a little stiff, but he shook my hand warmly and told me I had raised a remarkable daughter. Victoria and Cordelia did not attend. That door remained closed, and perhaps it always would. But Meredith had learned to accept that. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt, and that is okay. We cannot be loved by everyone. We can only be true to ourselves and let the chips fall where they may. Meredith walked across the grass toward Preston in the dress I had made for her, the dress we had now finished together. She looked beautiful, but more than that, she looked real. Not a polished image designed to impress, but a woman who had made mistakes and was trying to do better. I stood beside her, as her mother in a new dress I had made for myself, the first new garment I had created for my own pleasure in more years than I could count. And when the simple vows were spoken and the small gathering applauded, I felt something I had not expected to feel again. Hope. Not naive hope, not the blind optimism of someone who has never been hurt, but a wiser hope tempered by pain and loss, and the hard-won knowledge that love is not always easy, but it is always worth fighting for. Afterward, as the sun set over my little house, painting everything in shades of orange and pink, Meredith found me standing alone by the tire swing. "Mom," she said, slipping her arm through mine. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. I looked at my daughter, at the woman she was still becoming, and I thought about everything we had been through: the sacrifice and the hurt, the betrayal and the healing, the long, winding road that had brought us here to this moment, standing together in the fading light. "That is what mothers do," I said finally. "We love our children even when they break our hearts. We wait for them even when they push us away. And we believe in who they can become even when they have forgotten it themselves." Meredith leaned her head on my shoulder, the way she used to when she was a little girl. "I want to be more like you when I grow up," she said softly. I smiled, feeling tears prick at my eyes. "You have plenty of time to figure out who you want to be. Just promise me one thing. Anything. Never be ashamed of where you come from. Your story, all of it, the struggle and the sacrifice, that is not something to hide. It is something to honor. It made you who you are." She nodded against my shoulder. "I promise." We stood there together as the last light faded, mother and daughter finally at peace. I do not know what the future holds. Life has taught me that we never can. There will be more challenges, more moments when we disappoint each other, more growth and change that we cannot predict. But I know this: the bond between a mother and child is resilient beyond measure. It can survive rejection and cruelty. It can weather shame and silence. And it can emerge scarred, but stronger, ready to begin again. If you have stayed with me through this story, thank you. Thank you for listening to an old woman talk about the hardest and most beautiful parts of being a mother. I want to ask you something before you go. Have you ever felt ashamed of someone who loved you? Or have you ever been made to feel like you were not good enough by someone you sacrificed everything for? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes sharing our pain is the first step toward healing. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and reminds me that I am not alone in wanting to share the complicated truth about family and love. And if you want to hear more stories like this, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new one. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Maybe a mother who feels unseen, or a daughter who has some apologies to make. We never know whose heart might be touched by the right words at the right time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, no matter what you have been through, no matter how deep the wounds, healing is always possible. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. And never forget that the people who love you most are often the ones standing quietly in the background, asking for nothing but your happiness. Blessings to you all.